perspective. But as I transition, let me transition from that film. That HDMI cable needs to be put over. To Isaiah 19:24. I mentioned Isaiah is an important book in my life, but listen to this. This is where we're all going. As the waters cover the sea is fairly beautiful emblem of change and fullness, but this verse kind of goes, oh, that's also what that means. It says this: in that day, Israel will be a third party with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, blessed is Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. So he purposefully puts Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Egypt, in this, so that the people of Israel go, yeah, I'm after the whole world here. And this is how wild and beautiful and full the fulfillment of the Great Commission will be. Okay. Let me just say something very practical before I go through these quick slides. Church movements is housed in City. City is a ministry that has audiences that have come together to learn with and from each other, to choose when they can, how they can collaborate. But each city audience and their leadership is responsible for their own audience. And city is not doesn't have one strategy. It's not a strategy. It's a house, it's a destination, it's a value, it's an approach. Doesn't mean we're not interested in communities or small towns or rural. It's just someplace we all want to go because the world and the human tribe is moving to the city. And this is the vision we've cast. We are one of 6 audiences in City. Anybody want to try to tell me what they are? Do you know? Could you guess? Not.
Embark.
Pardon me?
Embark.
Embark is one. That's used to be called the Millennial Gate, but it's Embark now. It means the navigators call this audience 20-somethings, and that's kind of what we mean too. Embark. People embarking as into their adulthood and all that.
There's an arts.
There's an arts, yes.
Military.
That's actually an initiative. It's not an audience, but yeah. IIR, but that's okay.
Military.
Military, yeah.
Ambassador level.
The embassy ministry, yeah, it is a plus. It's not, we've never identified it as an audience for some reason, but it's maybe part of leader impact.
Or
It's not-
influentials.
Influentials, well, yeah, it might be.
It's part of that.
Okay, yeah, so it's military, embark, leader impact, influentials, neighbors, arts, and church movements.
Can you say those again? I just want to
You bet. Military, embark, leader impact, neighbors, arts, and church movements. And influentials is sort of a specialized ministry that's separated from leader impact. Don't know why, to be honest. But we do as many things as we can in America to overcomplicate the organization. The rest of the world is not organized this way. Only the U.S. is. And there's a contingency, that says, why don't we organize like the world is? But it's okay. We understand it, and we have freedom, and we're going for it. We represent church movements, represents the vision and the mission of global church movements. One of 5 strategies globally for Cru. City is not a strategy. That's why it's not mentioned. The 5 strategies of Cru that we've just gone through this global reorganization on is digital, media, student-led, including faculty, anything that has to do with a university campus or a high school campus, leader impact, and church movements. Those are the 5. So we report up to, Gabor and I report to Jake in City. He holds us accountable to our plan, the National Leadership Team plan, and just does coaching. That's it. We're a part of a round table that learns together, has some fellowship, tries to understand what everybody's doing so that we can see the calendar crossover and is there anything that we should be doing together, and then we make choices and do them or don't do them. It's like that. Because we are global church movements in the United States, we have a very strong dotted line to GCM. We have a coach, we have resources, we have global connections for resources, like say, for instance, putting our material in Latin. That doesn't come from City. Nobody in City is really helping us. It's coming from Latin America, GCM. They're putting our material in Latin. So we have resources galore because we're one of 5 ministries. And for missions, I mentioned it yesterday, it's unique to our audience, church movements, but anybody that's had a ministry that is global, that's in our ministry, we still pursue that globally. So Youth at the Threshold of Life and Story of the Soul. Last night, 9 o'clock, I was coaching people in Thailand how to do Story of the Soul because they wanted it. So we still do stuff like that. Looking for somebody to take that ministry off of my hands. Okay. So that's that. The rest of what I would like, any questions just about that before I go on? I want to say a little bit more about our ministry and how it started. We had 2 beginnings actually, but that's more the technical. Where we are, what our relationship is with GCM, who else is in the city.
So then, does Jake report to Gawker?
Yes, he's on the U.S. Ministry Leadership Team. I think that's what they call it. Yeah. Yep.
Field team,
Pardon me?
US field team?
U.S. Field Team, that's what it's called. Yes.
So in the global setup, because they change it all, and so sometimes I'm confused because you're part of,
GCM, yeah.
so you're sitting there, and it's not somebody else, because sometimes, some places in the areas, they have, one person's the overall, but they're also, somebody else inside.
So yeah, so they went from 13 regions to 7. All 7 regions of the world have to pursue the 5 strategies, including the U.S. The U.S. is very differently organized. But the 7 regions that pursue, like, it's a matrix, but the five mission critical components, here's the 7 regions of the world, geographical leadership. Under their leadership, they have a VP of strategic whatever for those 5 in each of the regions. In the U.S., it's not like that. So we're organized, we're still trying to understand how we're organized. So
we're, because we're part of the region
we are part of North America and Oceania.
Yeah.
I do not lead that. Gawker does not lead that. It's led by Bill Hodges, and he's kind of like City is to us. It's like, how can I resource it? It's like that. So he's trying to bring a cohesive resourcing and coaching and vision to Oceania and then Canada as well. But the reason why we're not the VPs of that region is because the U.S. ministry is so full, and they've even explained it that way to us. It's like, we do not want you guys casting vision in Oceania and Canada. Just keep doing what you're doing, and we're grateful. So Bill's a really good friend of ours, and we actually have a unique fellowship with any Western GCM nation. So there's a fellowship of GCM people that come together and say, how do you do GCM's vision in the West? I mean, this is crazy hard. And so we've met in Switzerland once, and because of COVID, we were kicked out of our meetings last April to Helsinki. But that fellowship exists, and every once in a while, some of you will be able to come with us because of what you're learning or doing, and it might aid that group. So, anything else about that?
No, it seems complex and cumbersome sometimes, but.
I know the system, but I didn't know that with the changes, who we're reporting to, so forth, so that helped.
Yeah, we're in the U.S. field ministry. U.S. is the oldest ministry, so they have kind of the right, or at least it's understandable to organize a little bit differently in the world. There are some that would feel, I'm kind of one of them, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna command it, but it's like, I wish we organized like the world to kind of simplify things, but there's a reason we're not doing it. The cascade of change would just ruin our culture. Probably, that's probably why they're not doing it. And they get paid more than we do. And the foreigner in our midst would go, and pride. Just kidding. I'm kidding. So here's the history that Bonnie wanted me to give, and I'm gonna just take a few more minutes. That we have two beginnings. So when Greg asked me to come back on staff, to consider coming back on staff, he cast the vision of North America, Oceania, because that region was under the then Vice President Steve Sellers, and to do GCM and city vision. So, but he said, let's start with US, and please start with conveners, because you've done this already in YTL. Because Steve and him and others were going, we've got to be a part of city gospel movements in the nation. So we started as a gate. It was too early in the game to start with a church, and we were still trying to figure out Bacaley and how do we want to contextualize this. And so we started as a convener gate, and our mission then was to accelerate strategic collaboration and mobilization of city leadership networks for gospel transformation of the city. So we went around the world, and this is bottom line, is it was a great way to start. We got to know every single major city leader in about 140 cities. So collaboration with 140 on a monthly basis called CityLink Conveners. Remember that? It was something that we coordinated with Kevin Palau, Mac Peer, Glenn Barth, Rebecca Walls, and a few of these city gospel people. And it was a TED Talk learning community. It was awesome. Well-being initiatives were creating pathways for Wind-Build Sin. And we saw in the city, for the city, this Kansas City Bridge Foundation was laid with over 100 mobilized in those years. And so there were some really great things. But one of the things that Greg and I and Gabor over time saw is that the narrative of well-being was so overtaking the church, and it was good, it was a needed thing, this good deeds and good news, Eric Swanson flying both wings, all that stuff, all the Ray Bakke stuff that I referred to the other night, and others. For staff that had been unattended for years, and we couldn't get to them, it was creating a little bit of tension for us, that, hey, are you doing Wind-Build Sin? Or are you just reading to children? Or are you just feeding the poor? Or are you mobilizing for Wind-Build Sin? And we were in Kansas City. But it was fine that they did what they did. It was still kingdom, it was all that. But it was a little bit disunifying for us. Is that a good way to say it, Amy?
Sure.
It was just, not intentional, like, no division. It was just...
We weren't being true to ourselves.
Yeah, we weren't being true to ourselves. And so over time, Greg and I were talking about, Greg really pulled the trigger and said, let's become church movements. So we even had to get permission to use that phrase, because even back then, Cru in the U.S. was a little bit confused. They were just wanting to only be Cru. And it's like, Steve, I can't just say Cru. Well, that's what campus does. I go, yeah, that's why we can't just say Cru. And he agreed, and at that time we didn't know much about Bacaley's ministry, really, although he actually challenged me in 2011, this is one other job I was considering, to take GJCX from him. And I said no after looking at it, but at that point, for a lot of reasons. But anyway, this is the way we started. We started, and here's some real highlights. We shared these 4 words: direction, partnership, culture, resource. I'm not going through all these, but We started with a season of prayer and listening. So what we did was we surveyed via personal interview 100 pastors, church planters, and biblical scholars from about 35 cities. And our objectives were these. It was done by Elisa Bentley, Gabor, Larry Christensen, Amy, me. Maybe
Oh,
one
sent
other?
out, yeah, I sent out some.
Yeah, Todd, and maybe Joseph. Just a very few, because we decided to just go, hey, great convener, great NLT, thanks for doing that. Let's take a break for a year and survey these people. And just, because someone's like, what are we doing now? It's like, we're not doing it, we're gonna keep everything we learned in well-being initiatives, but we're going after turn, and this is what Greg actually challenged me to in the first place, and this is what I'm more excited about. But anyway, so our objectives were to listen, learn and build a relationship with leaders in the American church via personal interview, to introduce Crew's mission of partnering to multiply churches and missional communities, and to discover potential future partners and ways we can best serve kingdom partners. So we did this, and when we interviewed them, these were the 5 questions. We interviewed, Sean Brackey and Francis Chan, D.A. Carson, Mike Tillett, former staff member of church plant, this Latino pastor, that African American pastor, this mega church pastor, Crawford Lorette, Brian, just so many, a variety of people, men and women. Not female pastors of the Methodist Church or something, I didn't mean that, but just missional leaders, like, what do you think about us going into this space? Ask them these questions. I thought I had another document of, hold on. That is it. So we created this surveying church leaders document. That you really need to read. And I don't know if it's in the drive, Gabor, but we should probably put the external survey.
It is, and I'll explain where you can find it.
Okay. So it's a 16-page document of the executive summary with some quotes from these 100 people of what they said in answer to these questions. And we said, let her rip. Like we heard from the Evangelical Free Church of America, they go, really, on question number 2, you really want to hear our concerns? Yes. We're coming in with this vision, one church for every 1,000 lost people in America, want to partner well, and we know that Crew has a spotted, history of, partnering. So let her rip. I mean, honestly, please let her rip. And you had pastors from Evangelical Free Church tell us, like, well, we have a saying about Crew in the background that we never let out of the background. I'm going to let it out right now because you're convincing me that I have the freedom to do it. Yeah. He goes, well, to partner with Crew, this is the same. To partner with Crew is to become Crew. It's like, oh man, there's a lot of people that feel that way in the U.S. But on the other hand, you had Tim Hawks in Austin, Texas, church planter, founder of Christ Together, say, plant Crew churches. We don't care, plant them. There's so many lost people, let's go, your kingdom, you're not a parachurch. And I go, gosh, thanks for the kingdom. We're not going to put Crew's name on anything, but I love your sentiment. You heard everything. So in this document that is in the drive, there's an executive summary that's 16 pages long. That doesn't sound like a summary, but it is. We took about 350 pages of notes. And there are quotes in there, and just so that you get a feel of what you're walking into. The summary is over the church, the partnerships, and Crew. It's like, what did we hear about the church? What did we hear about Crew? And what did we hear about partnerships? Okay, I'm not going through that. This is where all of this came from, though. It's like well, these are the words.
leaders, that are some of the things that you
Right.
heard, that we need to be
Yeah, I was-
careful of as we partner.
Yeah, well, we have to come in as servants in the body of Christ. I had the document up, but because of all the computer switching, I don't know what happened to it. I'm just gonna go to this. I'll speed up. So, there it is. This is the public version. So here's the executive summary. And, here's what I wanted to say. So, here's what some people said. The vast majority of leaders within the church are encouraged that we're wanting the church multiply. Church leaders want partners to help maintain missional focus. We're doing Q&A throughout, so the local church gives, you can read that. We heard repeatedly, our tone, posture has to be as a partnering service. But bring your game, because we need it.
Can you make that a little bit larger on the screen?
If this works. It was good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
So you should read the whole document.
No.
No, really, you should. And, our tone, come alongside to serve within the church in evangelism and discipleship as church planters. It's okay with me if you're church planters. As elders, as vital members, modeling coaching partners, show us how to talk to outsiders, develop leaders, mobilize for community. They know what we're about. And they want it. Mobilize disciples and volunteers into the life of the church. Encourage all trained alumni and graduates. This is where the burden started. Actually, it was started in 2013. But, it's like, please mobilize your campus ministry. They told us a lot about what they thought the campus ministry was, and so I passed that on to Gothier. Almost everybody said mission and planting churches always go together in the New Testament. I'm so glad Crew's finally seeing that. Yes.
That would be my question, and I don't care how you answer it, but you know where I'm coming from.
I do.
Our ethos was, we don't dare plant churches. We are
Yeah.
not a church planting ministry. And I want so badly to go from there because I believe in this so much. And
Yeah.
I'm so thankful and so excited.
Yeah.
You didn't have to get permission, we just started doing it?
So this is why this training is really important, and this is why we went slow. But Crew did do church planting globally. Not
True.
in Eastern Europe from 1993 onward, but Korea did,
Yes.
Southeast Asia and Africa did. There was
China, yeah.
never a church parachurch. Well, what are you guys doing? It was like, no, you're part of the church. You're apostolic, like Dr. Bright. We get it. Like Thomas Abraham, like Henry Todd. It's like, yeah. And nobody was on the campus anyway, and they wanted to see those campuses become churches. In Lio Label, we spent a lot of time with Lio. And Lio was like, we're converting everything into churches now, even our campus ministry. And how are you going to do that? And I still don't quite understand it, but the rest of the world was doing this. Yes?
A key factor of that, because I did that in Southeast Asia, is they were independent churches. They were never a Crew church.
And that's always for us
That's
too.
the difference, is there's
Yeah,
never.
they're not Crew anything.
But we can tell people we plant churches
Yes, in partnership.
in partnership. So
That's the key.
how we, okay,
Yep.
say it that way.
So in the United States, we started this way, and that's why the people who were doing interviews, it's like we had to be united ourselves. That we had a good ecclesiology, we had a high view of the church, but we didn't really view Crew as a second-class
A
calling.
denomination.
That,
We are not a denomination.
but we're not a second-class calling either.
Okay.
Like pastors can sometimes do that. It's like, and I go, well, that's why I start with APES. The apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, teachers, APES. Not that you're identifying what I am,
But you
APES.
didn't have to ask the board for permission.
No, No, oh, no, no.
But
I think
Steve
McKinley did.
Douglas came to you and said this is the time.
Yeah, this is the time. Steve Douglas, Steve Sellers, McKaylee, and Greg. It's like, okay, it's time. Because that's what I wanted to do when I came back on staff. And they
It's
knew it.
blessed. It's blessed.
Yeah, it's blessed. But the way we do it, of course, is important, you know.
Sanctions.
You know, but partnering, you know, like, core convictions essential for collaboration, like our posture is really important. We wrote a paper on this as well, how to partner because of this. You know, we heard this. Those who are involved in campus ministry similar to ours expressed that they highly valued it, but that the campus ministry model is not reproducible outside of campus. It's like, okay, maybe I agree with that, but we heard it, we wrote it down. You know, we wrote down collaboration comes with a lot of noise and ideas that can easily distract us. And boy, did it in the convener meeting. So we, you know, pursuing diversity is key. Minority pastors expressed questions and concerns regarding can we submit to traditional African American leadership in denominations? Whether or not dominant culture-led churches and organizations could help with financial challenges of being in a ministry. You know, we heard a lot, you know. Crew, you know, regarding crew, we were coaching to us and each other's like, we have to be a learner, we have to be a humble influencer, be biblically clear on what a church is. Those leading crew churchmen, this new initiative will need to have passion, skill, organizational authority, and resources to resolve and make this a success. This is what the Vice President of Redeemer City of City said. I hope they're giving you the right platform because this is key. You know, really good.
What does that mean?
Like, are you sponsored really to do this in crew? I hope so.
That was insightful.
Yeah,
Just thinking.
it was. And so the rest of the paper, you can just read it, but at the bottom of page 7, we had action steps, possible pursuits that came out of the first, 100 conversations. And some of those I look at that list now and I laugh. But here's a list of who we interviewed, what their roles were, and some of the highlights. We have the internal version. This is the external version with who said it. But this way, anyway. Okay, I know you want me to stop, and I want me to stop.
What is this called?
This is called Surveying Church Movement Survey, or what's it called?
So it's in the Google Doc.
Yeah.
It's in the resource.
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys have access to this.
Yeah. I'll show you exactly run new how to navigate the Google Drive. So.
Let me just show you this hyperlink on the thing. They all doesn't exist. Okay.
Wait a minute. Go to the partner tab.
What we'll do is,
It
we'll
should be
put
there.
all of the documents that we referred
Perspective on
to
the
today,
case.
we will
Scroll
put them in a church movements
No, it's-
orientation.
what is the
folder
church?
on the drive, so y'all can just go into
That's
that
what I'm
and
looking
find
for.
them all.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Wait a minute. It should be.
See, church movements perspective, kingdom, doesn't matter. We can take care of that later.
That's the old.
But let me just, I'm gonna show you a doc that you need to know where it is. So, what is the church?
And it's on the website as well.
What is the church? You see all these drafts, but the one you'll be reading is 6.0. I'm just pulling up one of them. They all said, what is the church? Oh, you're coming to the church space? Crew, parachurch. You're like, what is the church? They didn't know they were talking to somebody who had theological education and was a pastor. And I would say a really high definition of what is the church, and it's actually in this paper, and they go, could you send me that? Stuff like that. And then we had McKinley's definition of a vision church, which I'll share in my next portion. But God, when I wrote this, that this is a really good document. The kingdom and the church, and what we learned from the 100 interviews is that there are two major expressions in the church, of the church in the New Testament, universal and local. And there are two kinds of local. There's particular assemblies, that's a Presbyterian word, sorry, but local churches, particular churches, and there's city and regional churches. You see this in the New Testament. What we learned about from the survey is in America right now, it looks like this. There are existing churches, and then there are church plants. The existing churches is like a mosaic. You have mega church, satellite, traditional, multi-site, one location, one pastor, many sites kind of churches. You have multi-congregational, you have multi-ethnic, you have multicultural. There's a little definition in there. You got to become a student of this, especially if you go beyond one or two churches in your city. If you go catalytically, regionally, or at GACX or All American, you're going to run into all of this. And then you've got church plants, and there's words that we've heard. Simple, micro, rapid house. Now the biggest expression probably is micro. But they mean house churches. No building. Yeah, maybe we'll have a building one day, but it's like Curtis said yesterday. That's micro. And then they have traditional denominational movement models like NAM, who Joseph works with. Like, no, those house churches, we'll see if they're still here in 5 years. So we're planting to be here in 5 years. And so they take it slower, they assess, and we're all for that. We don't judge any partner's model. We follow their polity, meaning their government way. It's like, oh, you don't have elders? Okay. Whatever. We follow their polity, and of course they have to be theologically united, but most evangelicals are. Just look at the rest of the thing. I know I'm making everybody nervous over here. I'm stopping with this thought. Okay? I'm stopping with this thought. I just want you to know how we started. This is probably the most helpful thought. God gave us this idea that we're going to go through 4 seasons of this. So we went through a season of assessing our target, the church, like this. Let what we learned shape how we communicate, clarify how we communicate. We'd write it down and go, I think we're going to have a compass, and it's going to be these 4 words. And we did that. And then we started recruiting a team, strategizing, and organizing. And the reason why we did this is because so many people were fleeing the campus ministry. And if we, at this time, and they still maybe are, but we didn't want to lose the opportunity to recruit really good people, so we had to we had to go, this is what we are. Well, this is where we think we are. Do you have job descriptions? This is where all these things came from. We went through 4 seasons of this, and then we landed with everything that's on the webpage. That's the history talk. Okay. Want to take a break? Or what do we do?
No.
No.
We have a
Next
break
one.
coming up, but that won't be.
This will be better. So, I hope.
It will, or you hope? I'm just kidding.
Where did we?
Can I give a suggestion?
Yes.
Just to help us, because there was a lot. Can you give us 2 minutes to just maybe talk 2 by 2 to say, what did you hear? Kind of
Oh,
process
yeah,
it for a second,
sure.
and then we can move.
Okay.
Or do you want to do it large group? No, do it
No,
small group. Yeah, do it.
small group.
Yeah, that's.
That's good.
You bet, I guess. No, it's Bonnie's call.
No, that's good. That will help you do that.
No, I mean, I
So,
wasn't.
Sean, do you wanna, y'all, okay, y'all are together.
You did just lead a 4-day conference and a story this afternoon.
So, that's right now.
Go. Yeah.
Okay, so how do we?
It's like a big nine, right?
Which is not
I didn't realize it was
there's no way to make it easier.
Just kind of
It's
bend around
just
it.
the Band-Aid of just,
Yeah.
So, we don't deal plus, let's say,
Just sent out the evaluation, extend the
well, I know we just want to make it
That's
simple.
that is.
Well, we,
This is actually really good. I mean, it's even. So how much? We're still trying to take a break. At 10:08, they created this.
I'll probably
And
so
yours,
far,
you know, was really personal, so there's
It's gonna just start.
but one just goes through devotions, what are some of the
Okay, I know that wasn't very long.
And we don't want to hear what your process is. Maybe over lunch,
Yeah.
you guys could do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me, the objective of this session is to just kind of share a little bit more of what we're about and what burdens us. You know that this is an unusual ministry where we have co-directors. In case you're not from a ministry where you have co-directors, if you're from campus, you always have. Greg went to this model in 2018, and this is why we are. And it would be really hard to be co-directors if you weren't already great friends. We just are, and we can.
although Hungarians don't make friends with Americans.
Yeah. Read the last 2 chapters of our book, and you'll see what we say about our friendship. It's really good. But this is Crew's mission to win, build, send Christ-centered disciples who launch spiritual movements. And the way we contribute to that is by partnering to make Jesus known. And this is, I'm saying it a little bit differently than it's on our webpage, establish vital, multiplying, sustaining faith communities and churches and disciple-making groups. If you're not a church planter in our midst, that's fine. You're just a church multiplier. Whatever context you're in, you multiply groups, faith community, whatever it is, it's okay. You know, people got, we learned early, some of the staff in here remember, it's like, we're church planters now? Why would we want to plant dead churches? I'm like, we don't want to do that. And I just want to multiply disciples, right? So that's why Gopler's symbol of a circle with a lot of dots, that's a discipleship group, a traditional church building, and then a house church. We want it all to multiply. If you were to read the New Testament, you would see this definition of a church, and this is what all people calling for reformation of the church to be, to add mission to everything it is now, which is not missional, that to come back and say, these are the markers of a church. I'm not going to read this passage now, you're all familiar with it. But from this passage, these 2 passages, we come up with the idea that the church is about the word, it's about worship, it's about community and care, and it's about mission. And so the way we say it is this, that the church is a body of followers of Jesus Christ with Christ with recognized spiritual leadership. That would be, our way of secretly saying biblical leadership would be elders, but maybe the church doesn't say it that way. But recognized spiritual leadership who regularly gather for worship, fellowship, and instruction. They practice the ordinances and fulfill the Great Commission by loving and serving one another and their neighbors, and intentionally multiply themselves. It's a great definition. This comes from a lot in 2414, Big Life, a lot of people, and global church movements. This is our vision. Learn to say this inside your head. I mean, every man, woman, and child know the gospel and experience the love of Jesus Christ. through vital multiplied communities. That's our vision. That's our mission. We've said it a bazillion times. But when you say it, picture transformative churches in every segment of every city in the United States that demonstrate and communicate the gospel. Just picture it. It's a beautiful picture. And I've already kind of said this first night, didn't I? Second night, but you could learn these words that church planters think of churches regarding mission, regarding expansion of mission, in 5 categories. Are they subtracting, plateauing, growing? And if they're growing, how are they growing? Are they reproducing or are they multiplying? And the numbers are this low, that the churches that are making disciples who make disciples are less than 1%. It's not cool. Now, the stats here lessened in the last, they've changed a little bit since we put this up, but the first 2 categories, subtracting, losing members, or no growth, that's about 70 to about 80% of American churches. So that's why when you run into a kingdom guy or gal, they go, I don't care who you are, help me. They want help. These are some other stats that burden us. 2.5 million leave the church, about 30. What's that?
Now it's 2.7.
2.7 every year. This is from Daniel Yang, our friend, and 3,700 churches close every year. About 4,000 are planted every year, which means a net growth of 300. We need to plant about 8,000 a year to keep up with the exponentially growing lost population. 8,000 a year. We're sustaining about 300 a year. This is how bad our... So America has to shape the global world missionally into a new category. What are we? We're not least or no access, so we're saying unknown and rejected access. David Barrett wrote this 19 years ago, but the cost per conversion in traditional churches is $1.5 million per baptism. The cost of conversion in a micro church is 66 cents.
That's hard to believe. That's so.
And that's probably not changed very much. Now we're the 6th. It doesn't matter. None of those are. You see anything there you want to say?
We shared most of them at the first time.
Yeah. I like these 2 quotes, and I might close with this. I'm done. So here I'm closing with these 2 quotes. Amazing, right? J.D. Payne said this. He's a missiologist. Said, "Something is missionally malignant when we are willing to make great sacrifices to travel the world to reach a people group, but not willing to walk across the street." It's fundamental. What kind of theology and missiology support going over there and fails to advocate for going down the street? This is a missiologist saying this. Ed Stetzer, a really good friend of this ministry's, every time he introduces us to the church planting world, he says, I just want to remind you, Cru is planting churches with us now in partnership. And let me just say, Cru is the largest missional movement since Jesus rose from the dead. And YWAM would also be in that category too. So, don't let that make you feel prideful. Make you feel like, gosh, I hope we don't blow it. I mean, like, keep you on our knees and let's work in unity and figure this BIPOC stuff out. And it's not BIPOC stuff. Just let's figure out what's going on in our culture so that we can stay united and go, together, because we have so much to do. Ed said this, "It's becoming clear that our churches in North America have lost their once fervent passion for missions work. Many in the church are largely disengaged, or worse, simply disinterested." Okay.
We have 5 minutes for questions.
Yeah,
so.
and a lot of people can answer them, but yeah. Any questions come to your mind as you hear some of this stuff?
Can I share
Wow.
another Ed Stetzer quote? that we use.
Yeah.
It's more kind of along the lines of like small increasing churches, but, and I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure that's the one that said this, but, that statistically like 76%, now again, that might not be exact, it's like 70 or 80 or something. 76% of people are uninvitable to church.
Yeah.
Meaning, you invite them to come, hey man, come on Sunday. They might even say, yeah, sure, I'll be there, but they're just not gonna come. And so 76% of uninvited. And so the model that we've been using obviously is what we're
Yeah,
on. So we got
it's rejected
So,
access.
anyway, so that was another quote that we usually share a lot.
It's really good.
That phrase he just used, rejected access, is huge because, you know, they say, well, we've got churches, but nobody's going to them. That they're culturally cut off from the people that we're lost. And that's the rejected access.
Yeah. But they'll come to your home. They won't come over there, but they'll come to your home.
If you cook a dinner, they'll be there.
Keep going. Other thoughts, quick, go.
In doing this before, I want to make sure I'm correct in saying this, otherwise I need to change it. I've always said, as I've done this type of work, in my job, I'm a church planter, but I'm not a pastor. I differentiate between the two. And so that my local church, I can be a pastor, but when I'm doing crew, I'm helping plant churches, but I don't see myself as pastoring, because we had staff that were trying to pastor, and all of a sudden they're sucked in to this thing and trying to see a difference between the two, because they are different. Am I correct in, or lying to how you are all thinking, or do I need to adjust?
You're not lying, so, you know.
But there is a difference between a partner in church catalyst
That's,
and
well,
a church
I don't know where the
planter
new one is,
which
but.
Yeah,
you
but
have some
is there a time in the schedule when we talk about the job
Yeah,
descriptions?
we'll talk
So we
about
know
that.
to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I would say that the way we quickly say this, a partner church planter is somebody that has an established MOU, and it's like Joseph planting churches with him, it's
James Cogger.
James Collier planting church. Most of us are catalysts for church planting. That's just a nuance. Yeah, yeah. Another question?
Take a break?
Yeah. See you in what?